Have you noticed something strange? The moment you thought you were finally awake, the moment you touched something deeper and truer in yourself, love suddenly felt distant. And you're supposed to be more open-hearted, right? You're supposed to attract your soulmate after all this inner work. But instead, you can't even tolerate the idea of stepping into a relationship. You're not cold or broken. What's happening is actually one of the most paradoxical signs of awakening. And in this video, I'll reveal why awakening can feel like the death of romance, why solitude suddenly feels sacred, and how Carl Jung's psychology can guide you through this stage into real peace. So if you've been asking yourself, what's wrong with me? Why don't I care about love anymore? Stay with me, because by the end, you'll see that nothing is wrong. You might just be more whole than you've ever been. Here's the irony. Before awakening, many of us chase relationships not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of emptiness, fear of not being enough. Society whispers that you're only complete when you're married, when you have kids, when you fit the picture on the postcard. But Jung pointed out that when we begin to integrate our shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves, we stop projecting so heavily onto others. That means you no longer see a potential partner as your missing piece. Instead, you see them as they are. And often what you see doesn't match the fantasy. That realization can make relationships feel less magical at first, even disappointing. But it's not disappointment, it's clarity. Some awakened people even step back from the idea of having children, and not because they're selfish or broken, but because raising kids in a world that still runs on consumerism, ego, and unconscious patterns feels heavy. I've spoken to people who said, I can't see myself bringing a soul into a system that teaches conformity instead of freedom. I don't want to pass on wounds I'm still healing myself. I want my life energy to go into creating, healing, teaching, not just repeating what's expected. These are not excuses. They're authentic, deeply felt reasons that come from valuing truth over tradition. Awakening dissolves the blind loyalty to roles society hands us: parent, partner, provider. And that can feel isolating because suddenly you're living by your own script, not the collective one. When Jung spoke about individuation, the process of becoming whole, he described it as integrating your inner opposites, your masculine and feminine, the anima and animus, your conscious and unconscious. Before that, you're unconsciously looking for wholeness in other people. That's why we obsess over the one. After awakening, that need collapses. You're not desperate to be completed anymore, and this can feel strange at first. Solitude, which once felt like punishment, now feels like a temple. You guard it. You need space. And while that might make you feel antisocial, what's really happening is that your nervous system is recalibrating. You're learning to feel safe just being you. If this is resonating so far, write in the comments, I honor my solitude, or share your own experience. Do you feel like love disappeared after awakening? Let's talk about it below. So, let's be honest. This stage can feel heavy. Awakening is supposed to be liberation, yet suddenly you feel less interested in love, less open to dating, maybe even repelled by it. You look at the way people flirt, chase, or even idolize partners, and it all feels shallow. Carl Jung often noticed this with patients who had gone through intense inner work. When you integrate your shadow, you also dismantle illusions. And what's more illusionary than the perfect relationship that's supposed to fix everything? Instead of butterflies, you feel clarity. Instead of excitement, you feel cautious. This is not regression, it's maturity. So here's what's really happening. Awakening exposes all the unconscious contracts you used to carry. Things like, I'll be loved only if I please. I'll be worthy only if I have a partner. I need someone else to save me from loneliness. Once those dissolve, relationships can look like traps rather than blessings. You see where you gave away your power, where you accepted less than you deserved, where you confused attachment with love. And so your whole system says, pause. This pause is sacred. It's like pruning a tree. For a time, it looks bare and empty, but it's preparing to grow differently, more authentically. Jung believed we project our disowned qualities onto others. When we crave someone strong, we're really disowning our own strength. When we idolize someone gentle, we're hiding from our own softness. So when you lose interest in relationships, it's often because you've started reclaiming those qualities inside yourself. Suddenly, you don't need someone to hold your anger or your softness or your ambition. You're learning to hold them. So each time you find yourself irritated or enchanted by someone, write it down. Ask, what does this trait awaken in me? Where is this inside me? Over time, you'll see how your inner world is reflected back at you. This practice not only reduces your disappointment in others, but also helps you meet people from a place of wholeness instead of need. Some people describe this stage as suddenly becoming antisocial. You might not want to go on dates, you might withdraw from friends who feel fake, you might prefer silence over small talk. But think about it. When you've tasted truth, how can you keep playing games? Jung wrote in his notes that many patients after profound inner shifts went through what he called a period of necessary isolation. They felt cut off, but they were actually learning to anchor themselves before re-entering society on their own terms. So if you feel less interested in people, it doesn't mean you'll always be alone. It means you're detoxing from superficial connections so your system can be ready for authentic ones. Think of it like fasting. When you stop eating processed food, your body craves silence first. No sugar, no additives, no constant stimulation. But eventually, your taste buds reset and you begin to enjoy real, nourishing food again. The same thing happens with relationships. After awakening, you're fasting from false intimacy so that when real intimacy arrives, you'll recognize it instantly. Jung once said that loneliness is not about being without people. It's about being unable to communicate the things that matter to you. After awakening, that gap between you and the world can feel huge. But solitude gives you the space to hear your own soul's voice without compromise. During this stage, many people discover new passions, creative work like painting, writing, or music, spiritual practices like meditation, prayer, or dream journaling, simple joys like walking in nature or cooking a meal slowly. These aren't just hobbies, they're ways of grounding yourself in your own essence. They remind you that love isn't just something you receive, it's something you embody. But let's be real. Sometimes fear still creeps in. You might wonder, what if I stay alone forever? What if my standards are too high now? Here's where Jung's concept of shadow work becomes so useful. Often, when we fear never finding love, what's really hiding underneath is the shadow of our own self-doubt. Do I believe I'm lovable? Do I believe I deserve someone who truly matches me? Here's a simple exercise. Write down the belief that scares you most. For example, I will never find someone who understands me. Then ask, whose voice is this? Is it truly mine, or did I inherit it from society, my parents, or past heartbreak? Next, reframe it in a way that empowers you. I am becoming someone who naturally attracts the right people. This doesn't erase the shadow, it integrates it. You acknowledge the fear, but you don't let it rule your choices. Awakening doesn't mean you reject love. It means you redefine it. You stop chasing completion and start valuing resonance. And that shift requires patience. Here are a few practices to help you walk this stage with peace. Treat alone time like a spiritual practice, not a punishment. Light a candle, breathe, and remind yourself, I am whole in this moment. Check your relationships. Which ones feel nourishing? Which ones feel draining? Slowly release the draining ones without guilt. Notice how your body reacts around people. Expansion often means alignment. Tightness often means compromise. Trust this wisdom. Channel the love you use to seek outward into art, service, or spiritual work. Love doesn't vanish, it transforms. So if you feel less interested in love, don't panic. You haven't lost love. You're learning to recognize its real form, and when it finally shows up, it won't feel like possession or dependency or a mask. It will feel like two complete souls walking side by side. Until then, solitude is not your enemy. It's your training ground. Before you go, tell me in the comments, do you see solitude as sacred, or does it still feel scary? And if you want to keep exploring the wisdom and the psychology of awakening, subscribe to Fractal Wisdom. We're building a space where depth, truth, and healing are welcome. Because remember, losing interest in old forms of love doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're awakening to love's highest truth.